Greetings! Are you new to Dead by Daylight and you're looking for some pointers to get you started? I got 10 survivor tips for you. Let's jump right into it. Number 1, looping. The term looping refers to the process of how you run a killer when he or she is chasing you during a match. Scattered across the map, as the game makes pretty obvious, are various pallets and windows you can use to help yourself escape from killers. Every killer in the game is naturally faster than the survivors or has the means of catching up to them very quickly. Most new survivors have a bad habit of just instantly dropping pallets to gain distance and then just running in a straight line away from the killer. This is okay when you're new, you're trying to get the feel for the game. However, a really good killer can force pallets out quickly, and then when there's nothing but dead zones in the area, survivors get overwhelmed and nobody can survive in chase. Looping means using the various structures that contain pallets, called loops, to a strategical advantage by lasting as long in them as possible. Rather than just instantly dropping the pallet, you can run around the structure or try and avoid the killer's mind games over and over until you're forced to drop the pallet, and then proceed to play around that if the killer doesn't want to break it. In addition, make sure you're using windows to extend the amount of time you have for a pallet. Most structures, like the killer shack, you people tend to use the window first over and over before it gets blocked off. While in chase, you can vault any window 3 times before it is blocked off for a short while. Certain pallets are also stronger than others. Very small little loops are called unsafe pallets, where you have certain areas where once the pallet is dropped, the killer can't get you no matter what, called God pallets. Make sure you know what pallets you're using and when to run away from them. Number 2, managing generators. Scattered across the map are 7 damage generators, and it is up to your survivor team to power up 5 of them in order to open the doors and escape the killer. The killer, of course, will be trying to prevent you from going to his generators, and the killer himself can see the outlines of these generators that have still yet to be completed. There's more than just simply walking up to a generator and holding the primary action button on it. First, you always need to be watching where you are on the generator, checking various doorways to make sure the killer is not coming towards you, and being sure you have an escape plan should the killer show up before the generator is completed. Be noted, every time a generator is completed, the killer will get a loud notification that it has been done. In addition, you need to be aware of what generators are being completed and at what times. If you are on comms with your teams, you can discuss this quite easily. However, there's the process of 3-genning. 3-genning is a very powerful killer tactic where once 4 of the 5 generators have been completed, there leaves only 3 left, but they're all in the exact same area, making it easy for the killer to patrol them and punish any survivors that come near. You ideally want to ensure that even in a solo team that various generators in different sections are being completed to deny the killer the easiest possible distance between them. Unable to find a generator, simply try and look ahead on most maps to see little lights flashing above. If you see the lights slowly flick on and off, it means they are unpowered and you can go work on them. And if they're bright and slightly flickering, then they're most likely completed. Generators take 80 seconds to complete by 1 survivor, and they take 47 seconds to complete with 2 survivors. Bear in mind that various killers have different abilities that allow these generators to go slower or outright damage your progress on them. Sometimes it is even safer or a better idea to complete a generator that is almost done and take a hit or do the generator before saving a hooked survivor. Number 3, manage your team. As a new survivor, you ideally want to look out for numero uno and just focus on getting better at the game. However, the best kinds of survivor teams are overly altruistic. This includes the healing action and the unhooking action, which add to your healing score, which the game will reward you for in points. Every survivor has 3 hook states. Upon being hooked for the 3rd time, the survivor will instantly die. It is up to you to decide how you want to manage the team, keeping an eye on knowing where your teammates are, who's being chased and when, and when you might need to take the chase from the killer because you have no hook states and your teammates have others. The game is quite easy with 4 survivors, but the minute somebody dies, the killer has an overwhelming advantage. If the first survivor dies before 2 generators are completed, that things won't be looking good. Granted, you can come back from this, but you would like to ensure that all 4 survivors make it out, or at the very least survive to the near end to ensure the most people escape as possible. Sometimes teammates can't help but being bad. Sometimes teammates can't help but making mistakes, and that is okay. It is up to you to not get mad at them and let them die, but you do want to avoid various situations. For example, if you find that 2 people are being chased by the killer, figure out which one of you the killer is ideally going for, and then act accordingly. This could mean if the killer is chasing someone else, do not run in the same direction as them, as 2 survivors at a loop are likely to get in each other's way, resulting in the killer getting much better results. Number 4, dealing with camping. Camping, as known in most games, is the idea of sitting in one spot to benefit from it. is one of the most powerful and annoying killer tactics in the game, but in some situations it is less embarrassing and more necessary due to the pacing of the rounds. Killers will tend to feel this way when they're overpressured and can't benefit from chases, so instead they will hook a survivor once and then just stand near the hook and wait for that survivor to die. There are different ways you can handle situations like this depending on the killer you're facing or the team you're working with. A well-coordinated team might be able to lure the killer away with one survivor while the other one goes for the save. If you're dealing with a killer like Bubba with a chainsaw who's hell-bent on making sure that survivor on the hook dies, if they choose to stay on the hook rather than kill themselves immediately, it might be just in your best interest to focus on the gens. The longer you wait to try and save that person only for them to die, the quicker he can go to face camp someone else. If you have the perk Borrowed Time, this will temporarily protect the person you unsave, so if you're willing to take a protective hit for them, you can give them the bubbles of protection for a short 12 seconds. In an ideal situation, survivors will tend to trade hook states. This is only a very good strategy with a well-coordinated team. That is the process of waiting for someone on the hook to get to the very last second before they add another hook state. Someone saves them and likely goes down in the process of the camping killer. You can also bait hits out of the killer by forcing them to hit the person on the hook, which will do no damage to anyone, and allowing you enough time to save them. Keep in mind the killer can interrupt you while unhooking and outright grab you and put you on his or her shoulder. The tactic there, if the killer is standing right behind you, is to bait it and make them hit you instead so you can save the person before going down, and rather than the killer getting two people at once. Number 5, 99ing the doors. This is a very simple strategy, but upon completing all of the 5 necessary generators, the exit doors are powered, and each one takes about 20 seconds for a survivor to pull down the level and slowly unlock them. As soon as the doors are open, though, this starts the endgame timer, which once it takes down, any survivor still in the trial will be guaranteed death. There's also various killer perks that benefit from having the doors open once the game is over. So survivors will usually tend to 99% the doors, bringing them to just one tap away from being opened, and leave them there. Of course, this is very situational. There are certain times where the doors need to be opened right away, and other times where you might be forced to open the door by the killer. It is up to you to act accordingly, but normally when the doors are 99, it's easier to get everyone out. Hey, thanks for checking out my video. Be sure to hit that like button if you enjoyed. It does help it perform better. Number 6, Misdirection. Killers aren't the only players that can mind game in Dead by Daylight. Survivors have the innate ability to get inside the killer's head just like any other person. The idea of misdirection is faking various windows or pallets and forcing the killer to make a read. And whether the killer is right or not on this read is solely up to how they interact, but the idea of misdirection is forcing the killer to think you're doing one thing and you're doing another. This could be as simple as running to a window and making it look like you're going to vault, but then at the last second not pushing the vault command, forcing the killer to swing or run at the window, and you're not even going through it. This can also be when you're dealing with range killers, such as the best thing to do against range killers is to practice looking behind you. Once the range killer is behind you, you can watch where they're going to throw and wobble back and forth to try and make them miss. You can even misdirect in chase while the killer is right next to you, trying to go for a big swing. You can fake left and go right, although this won't necessarily buy you a whole lot of time, but it can extend the chase to benefit your team and give them a little more time. Number 7, jumping in a locker if you're guaranteed to go down anyway. Hiding in a locker can be very helpful to avoid the killer. However, if you stay in one too long or if you stay in one injured, the killer will hear you, and as soon as it's open, it doesn't matter how much damage you may or may not have taken, the killer can just instantly pick you up and put you on his or her shoulder. Lockers are normally regarded as not a good strategy. However, certain killers have the ability to one-hit survivors. If, for example, you're being chased by Oni in his blood fury with his mace, or if you have Bubba behind you with his chainsaw and you have no safer place to go to, ideally running inside a locker can at least buy you a little time. Bubba will run into it with his chainsaw, and then you have a small window of opportunity to hop out of the locker before he can hit you again. Just don't do it as soon as he bumps into it, because you will walk right into the chainsaw. As well with other killers, you can make them hit the locker and jump out. This might not give you a whole lot of time, but it can definitely mess the killer up. Ideally, the best time to use this locker strategy is against Myers, because he has an add-on called the Tombstone. If you're able to tell he has the Tombstone add-on, it means as soon as he's next to anyone, he can instantly mori them and kill them and take them out of the game, regardless of how many hook states they have. The best thing to do here is to force him to pick you out of a locker and hook you instead of instantly take you out of the game. Number 8, breaking totems when necessary. Every killer has 5 totems placed around the map. Depending on if a killer brings any hex totem perks or not will be solely up to them. If you see a totem, these little bones in the corners, depending on what you want to do or what strategy your team has going forward, you should contemplate breaking them. A dull totem is a totem that has is just the bones and sticks, and it has no other features to it. Simply hold down the action command on them and you will break them. If the totem appears to have an orange flame or aura on it, that means it is a hex totem and it is an ability given to the killer. You always want to break these, even if it's haunted grounds. That is the only time it is a negative to break one, because it'll expose you. But every other hex perk by killers you'll want to break, as it is giving them some sort of ability. A totem with a blue aura is a boon totem, and even though they're a little too powerful at times, these are survivor totems. Survivors can bless these totems and give you an ability if you're in the totem's range. Ideally, unless you have a strategy bent on someone having a build to find totems, you don't want to spend the whole game looking for them. You just want to break them if you come across them. There are a few common known spots you'll learn them, such as in Shack or the main building in higher areas. Number 9, observing the killer's perks and knowing how to counter them. My friends like to make a joke that as soon as I jump into a game, I can guess everything about the killer in the first 15 seconds of the round. Although this is quite humorous to a degree, it can be true depending on what the killer is doing. It is ideal that you understand the killer perks and knowing what you're going up against so you know how to deal with them. For example, if you notice the killer immediately after hooking someone from on one end of the map runs all the way over to your position on the other, might mean they have barbecue and chili. And so knowing the killer has barbecue would allow you to hide in lockers right before someone is hooked, denying the killer the ability to see you and possibly mind-gaming them into staying in that area for a short while. Another one might be thrilling tremors. As soon as a killer picks someone up, it will block all generators that are not being worked on. This will alert the killer to a generator that you might be on when he picks someone up, and if you're aware of this, it might be in your best interest to let go of the generator, allowing thrilling tremors to activate before hopping back on or slipping your way over to into a position the killer might think you're not at. Other killer perks to watch out for are Devour Hope, one of the most powerful hex perks in the game. Upon the killer hooking 3 people and having them each of them saved away from him, he'll gain the ability to expose survivors and down them in one hit. This is a perk that you basically have to drop the game to look for and break to deny the killer the ability to maintain it. Understanding what the killer perks are and what benefits they're gaining in the match can allow you to understand the counters to these perks and how to combat the killer in a more efficient way. Number 10, play the killer. This is not a joke, this is an actual survivor tip. The best thing you can do for yourself is understand both roles. Even if you want a main survivor, you should play killer every now and again to understand the killer's mindset. Most people tend to play one side, favor that side, and then believe the other side is super unfair and should be nerfed over and over again, which is not always the best case. Having misconceptions about the opposing team will lead to you just having negative feelings towards those players and making this already toxic community even worse. In addition, if you play as the killer, you understand their mindset, where they need to go, what gens they're going to focus on, and how they're going to go against certain survivors at certain loops. Knowing this, you'll know how to deal with them at various loops and know which teammates you need to protect to ensure the killer doesn't get a major advantage over you. And, come on, killer role's pretty fun too. If you made it this far into the video, thank you so much for watching. I very much appreciate it. I hope some of these tips will be able to help you improve your status in Dead by Daylight. If you enjoyed, consider subscribing for more, because I do plan to make more helpful content. This is a very passionate game of mine, and I hope to instill hope and confidence into new players. I hope you enjoy the rest of your days, and I will see you in the next one.